I have nearly 2,000 hours in Schedule 1, which means I know every location, every piece of terrain, and every road like the back of my hand. But what if none of that existed? That's right, I removed all of it, which means we're gonna have to get around the map by jumping on buildings, parkouring off oil barrels, and using every single speedrun technique that I've ever learned. If I fall into the void, I lose everything. How do we do this? Ooh! Oh! So today, we're gonna beat Schedule 1 without ever touching the dirty, disgusting ground. Let's get into it. Since we can't exactly wake up in the RV, we're gonna spawn here with basically nothing in our pocket.
Holy shit, there's like nothing.
Now listen, before you say anything, this technically isn't the ground. You know what I mean? It's like a carport, so it's fine. Now, our very first step is getting to the motel, which proved a bit of a challenge since there's not exactly a road for us to follow. At first I tried going this way, but there wasn't actually a way to get across, so we had to loop all the way back around to the warehouse just to make any progress. After walking along the pier, we encountered another problem. There's not a way to get across here either, but that's when it hit me. I think we could probably just use the sewer to pop out in front of the motel and jump across that way. There's an exit right in front of the motel. So we hopped under the Westfield Bridge and yeah, there wasn't a sewer. So we started looking around for other ways to get to the motel, and that's when I spotted a ladder against the wall. We jumped on the rock, climbed the ladder, and made it onto the roof of the motel. We jumped over here, bought the motel from Donna, and headed inside with the help of a little jump boost. Now that we've made it to the motel, our next step is to go to the hardware store for some supplies, since we didn't get to take them from the RV. But unfortunately, I had a little accident. And how do we do this? Ooh! That wasn't ideal.
I just lost everything.
We still gotta get to the hardware store, so we jumped on this little dumpster over here, back onto the rock, and then climbed the ladder to get on top of the motel again. From this wonderful vantage point, I noticed that there's actually still some street lamps there. So I think if we manage to get on top of the pharmacy, we might be able to jump on the street lamp and get across the road. So I jumped over to this little patch of concrete and ran along the way behind Thompson Construction. Now there's a little trash can here, and we can actually use this to boost back on top of the construction zone, where we can jump over to the pharmacy, run across the street lamp, and successfully make it to the sweatshop. And now that we're here, I still have no idea how we're gonna get to the hardware store. So I started looking around, and honestly I was at my wit's end until I noticed this building has a ladder attached to it, and I think if we climb it, we might be able to jump across.
Ah, okay, we figured it out.
Now unfortunately, while trying to buy our supplies from Dan, we ran into a little problem. I might have forgotten to put some money in the ATM. Now thankfully there is one right across the street by the skate shop, but in order to get there we have to backtrack all the way back to the motel. And since we can't magically jump on top of the street lamps, we have to find an entirely new route to get back to the motel. Now we can just jump across and jump down into the pit. Unfortunately, the ATM is right on the edge, but George Green was nice enough to let us finish cramming some bills inside before trying to push us into the void.
Oh, hey George. What's going on, brother?
But now we have an entirely new problem. We are stuck in the pit. But don't worry, I know a way out.
At first glance, it may seem impossible to jump 3 times as high as normal. But by using an advanced cursed technique passed down from speedrunner to speedrunner, it becomes possible. Consider the humble bench. To the untrained eye, it is but a mere object. To those who know, it is a ladder to the heavens. Every object has surfaces, and by timing your jumps frame perfect on each surface, it is possible to soar, a technique the ancients called triple jump boosting.
So anyways, we head back to the hardware store, buy our supplies, and tell Dan we work in agriculture to get some free speed grow. Then we make our way back to the motel and get everything set up. Place the grow tent, put in some soil, and then we get a new quest. We gotta go talk to Uncle Nelson at the payphone. So we climb back on top of the motel, jump across, and give him a ring. Ahem! You're almost ready to go, but you're missing one key ingredient, weed seeds. So we text Albert to buy some seeds, wait for it to get delivered, and go pick it up from behind the laundromat. Then we hop back on over to the motel and get to growing. Now, unfortunately, at this point, I realized that because we didn't get anything from the RV, we also don't have a packaging station. So we need to truck it all the way back to the hardware store again. But then we ran into a different issue.
It's $100. I don't have $100.
So we're gonna have to do what any good entrepreneur does when they're strapped for cash. We're gonna have to bash in some ATMs. But it turned out to be a little bit harder than I originally anticipated. We have no way to get the money. Thankfully, with this ATM, I was able to grab some money out of the air like it was a cash grab machine at an elementary school field day. And after depositing the money, I was able to get the packaging station set up just in time to harvest our weed and get ready for our first big deal. Now, Kathy wants to meet at the barber shop, so we head over there, give her the weed, fail our pickpocket, accidentally sacrifice her to the void, and watch as her soul possesses some random dude's car.
What the hell?
I'm never coming outside at night again. Now, this is probably a good time to tell you guys that the challenge ends when I make enough money to buy the shit box. I thought there was no more poetic way to end the challenge than by buying something that I can't even use because there's no roads to drive it on. We start our second day off strong by depositing some cash, buying some new equipment, and expanding our operation to 2 full grow tents. And after getting the plant set up, we head out to do our deals, but unfortunately, Austin is kind of on a mandatory tea break because I have no way to get to him over at Highland Range. Luckily though, Kyle was where he always is, right behind the Taco Tickler, so that one was pretty easy at least. And I was honestly getting kind of sad about our lack of customers, so I decided to go around and give out some free samples. Donna honestly wasn't that hard, but everyone else after her was ridiculous. I ended up having to play only up to get to Chloe. I had to take a page out of Peter Files' book and stalk Geraldine just to get to him. Then I had to catch Peter on his way to hang out with Ludwig, and then while trying to give a free sample to Ludwig, I ended up getting trapped and gangbanged by him, Jeff, and Cranky Frank.
What is going on? What is going on?
So yeah, we're not having a great time. I mean, honestly, the only way out of this was for me to kill Ludwig and try to jump around the corner. But after that shit show, I thought it was probably best if we just called it a night. So we went ahead and did all of our deals, asked the customer politely to give some of the weed back, and then went back to the motel to hit the hay. We woke up, got our plants set up and our weed packaged, and then headed outside to do some more free samples. The only 2 people we have left in Northtown are Peggy and Beth, and while sitting on top of Taco Tickler, we saw Peggy walking over to the slop shop, and I know what you're probably thinking. Oh Willie, that's so close, it's just across the street. And if you were thinking that, you might be dumber than a box of rocks. Because remember, I removed all the streets. So instead of walking across, we have to jump on top of the motel, cross the street, walk along the path here, jump up behind Thrifty Threads, cross the street here, and walk down this alleyway just so she can try some of our OG Kush, which thankfully she loved. But honestly, Peggy was nowhere near as bad as Beth was. Beth was 10 times worse. You see, she works in this building right here, but after snooping around for a few minutes, I couldn't figure out a way to get across the street, until I remembered that there's technically a pathway behind the Stash and Dash that could give us access. But in order to get there, we'll have to get on top of Highland Range somehow. Now, if you remember earlier, we used a trash can to get on top of the construction company, and now we're going to do the exact same thing using America's favorite thing in the world, an oil barrel. So we jump on top of Highland Range, run across the path, climb up the parking garage, use the speedrunning technique from earlier to hop on top of the supermarket, and then over to the Crimson Canary, and then we jump on this ledge right here. From here, we can walk around and get right in front of the office building, but unfortunately, this took me about 15 minutes to do. So by the time I got to the office, Beth had already left.
Harold, what's going on, brother? Is Beth in there?
Now, I did manage to find her in front of the parking garage, but turns out she didn't like my product. But don't worry, this isn't the first time a woman's rejected me, so I think I took it pretty well. Fuck! And then like immediately afterwards, it started raining, so I figured we should just do our deals, harvest our plants, and go to bed. We wake up with $1,200 in our pocket, which is a long ways off from the $5,000 that we need to buy the shit box. And I figured the best way for us to get some additional cash is by doing the same thing we did yesterday and expanding our clientele. So we run outside and give Beth a sample, and thankfully, she said yes this time. And since she was the last person in Northtown that we needed, now we can move on to giving drugs to everyone in Westville. We parkoured on over to Joyce, who graciously accepted our weed, and then I used a trash can to get over to the pier and give a sample to Keith. and of course he told me to go fuck myself. And that's why Keith got his very own tier on my tier list video. I'm not exaggerating when I say that I genuinely think that Keith is the worst character in Schedule 1. But on the flip side, Meg was pretty easy, and after spending a few minutes creepily staring through the window while Doris was shopping, she also said yes. At this point it was getting pretty late, so I figured we should probably just go ahead and do our deals. We didn't have any issues selling to Chloe and getting our drugs back, but when it came to Geraldine, we ran into a bit of a problem. You see, Geraldine wanted 8 full baggies of our OG Kush, and obviously that's a lot. So after I sold it to him, I tried to pickpocket it back, and the cops saw me. They immediately tried getting me, so obviously in the name of self-defense, I beat the shit out of them with a bat. I then spent the next 5 minutes trying to hunt down Geraldine to get that 8 weed back. We gotta go. We gotta get this off of Geraldine. And unfortunately, I was not successful. So I looped back to the scene of the crime, picked up the cops' guns so we can pawn them off tomorrow, finished our deals, and then headed to bed. When we woke up, we were only $2,000 away from buying the shitbox. So we pawned off the 2 guns that we got from the police officers for a measly $850. And then we headed over to Westfield to give free samples to the 2 remaining people that we haven't done it with yet, Jerry and Keith. But on my way to get to Keith, I had an accident. I lost our weed, I lost our watering can, and I lost our trimmers, which means we're not going to be able to grow any more weed. Now I did stash 9 baggies in the motel before heading out, so we're going to have to get to $5,000 with only these 9 baggies. So I headed back out to Keith, and he said yes this time. Then I went to Jerry, and he's a very easygoing guy, so he also said yes. And then we had to do our deals, but that's going to be a problem, because our customers want 20 baggies of weed tonight, and we only have 7, which means I'm going to have to sell it and pickpocket it back every time without failing. And in typical Big Willie fashion, I almost fucked it up on the very first deal. Oh my god, that was close. We almost lost all of our weed. So after getting our weed back from Austin, we went and sold some to Meg, pickpocketed it back, then sold it back to Peter, beat the shit out of him to get it back, and then we go to Kyle. And here's the problem. Kyle's the homie. I couldn't bring myself to pickpocket Kyle, which means we only have 1 baggie of weed left. And we're $230 off of our goal. So instead of selling weed to Geraldine, I just beat him up instead and took his money that way. But hey, it got us to $5,000, which means we can go to bed and tomorrow we can buy the shitbox. We woke up the next morning with a brand new text from an unknown number, asking us to meet outside. So we hopped, skipped, and jumped our way on over there, told him to fuck off, and watched as he drove into the void and killed himself. By Mr. Thomas Benzies, which I think technically counts as beating the cartel since, you know, Thomas Benzies is dead now. I guess. So anyways, we deposited the $5,000 into our bank account, smoked our last baggie of OG Kush to celebrate, and headed to the car dealership to buy our car. But that's when I ran into our last problem. How the hell am I supposed to get across here? It's way too wide of a gap to jump across, and there's nothing for us to boost off of. Plus, there's not even a way for us to go around. There's nothing that really connects to Highland Auto. So after running around like a headless chicken for about 10 minutes, I had an idea. If we were able to get onto the roof of the gas station, we might be able to jump onto this light pole and then jump across to the concrete over here. So I stacked an oil barrel on top of the pallet and another one on top of the Cuke machine and managed to get on top of the gas station. But after jumping onto the light pole, I still didn't think I could make it across in a single jump. But if it took us 2 oil barrels to get up here, I figured a third one was the way to go. So I threw one on the roof, put it on the end of the light pole, hopped on top of it, and took one final leap of faith. I mean, to be honest, it wasn't that difficult, it just took a little bit of thinking. But after making it across, I gave $5,000 to Jeremy, bought our shitbox, and drove it off into the sunset. Thank you all for watching. I've never really done a challenge video before on this channel, so I hope you all enjoyed this, and I'm sorry it took me a little while to get it out. I appreciate you all more than you'll ever know, and as always, stay silly, y'all.